The voice on the phone was calm, controlled, but it carried the kind of authority that made people instinctively stand straighter. Daniel Hayes frowned as he held the phone between his shoulder and ear. The oatmeal on the stove bubbled over with a soft hiss. Behind him, his 6-year-old daughter Lily sat at the kitchen table, coloring a crooked purple airplane with a box of half-broken crayons. Daniel almost laughed. "Excuse me," he asked. Static crackled through the line. Then the voice repeated, firmer this time. "Identify yourself, state your call sign." For a moment, Daniel simply stared at the wall. His tiny apartment kitchen suddenly felt smaller. Something about the words triggered a reflex buried deep inside him. Years of cockpit discipline, years of emergency training. Before his brain could stop it, his mouth responded automatically. Falcon 7 responding. The words left his lips like muscle memory, like they had never left. Silence swallowed the call. Daniel blinked and rubbed the back of his neck. Old habits. "Sorry," he said quickly. "That was from my flying days." On the other end of the phone, the silence had changed. It wasn't confusion anymore. It sounded like shock. "Did you just say Falcon 7? Daniel turned the stove off and leaned against the counter. "Yeah," he replied casually. "That was my call sign when I flew commercial routes." Another long pause. Then the stranger spoke again. But this time his voice had completely changed. Slower. Heavier. "Daniel Hayes, correct." Daniel's eyebrows knit together. "Yeah, who's this?" Across the country, inside a massive glass tower overlooking the skyline, billionaire CEO Richard Calloway slowly stood from behind his desk. His hand trembled slightly as he held the phone. Because Falcon 7 wasn't just any call sign. 3 years ago, during a catastrophic storm over the Atlantic Ocean, a pilot using that exact call sign made a decision aviation experts still talked about in quiet voices. A decision that saved 183 passengers, including Richard Calloway. For 3 years, the CEO had tried to track down that mysterious pilot. But the airline's internal investigation buried the case. The pilot disappeared, vanished from the industry. And now somehow, the man he had been searching for was standing in a cramped apartment, making oatmeal for his daughter. Richard Calloway exhaled slowly. Then he asked the question that would change everything. "Daniel Hayes, how would you like your life back?" Daniel stared at the phone. Because for the first time in years, someone was finally asking about the truth. And what he didn't know yet was that the world was about to discover what really happened in the sky that night. But before we continue, if you're enjoying this story so far, please consider subscribing. Stories like this take a lot of time and care to create, and your support truly means a lot. What would you have done in Daniel's situation? Would you have answered that strange call or ignored it completely? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. 3 years earlier, Daniel Hayes had been one of the most respected pilots in the industry. Passengers trusted him. Crew members requested to fly with him. His record was flawless. Over 9,000 flight hours. 0 incidents. Until the storm. It began as a routine overnight flight across the Atlantic. Flight 728. 183 passengers. Clear departure. Normal altitude. Then the weather radar lit up like fireworks. A massive supercell storm system had formed faster than expected. Air traffic control began rerouting aircraft across the region. But something felt wrong. Daniel studied the radar again. The storm wasn't behaving normally. Lightning flashed constantly across the clouds like veins of electricity. Then the turbulence hit. Hard. The aircraft shook violently. Passengers screamed. The autopilot disconnected. Daniel grabbed the controls. "Hold altitude," his co-pilot shouted. But Daniel's instincts screamed something else. The storm was collapsing inward. If they stayed at their assigned altitude, the plane would fly directly into the most violent core. Daniel made a decision that violated standard protocol. He turned the aircraft. Immediately. "Falcon 7 deviating course," he reported. Air traffic control protested. The maneuver created spacing conflicts with other aircraft. But Daniel ignored them. He trusted his instincts. For 15 terrifying minutes, the aircraft fought the storm's edge. Lightning cracked around the wings. Wind screamed across the fuselage. Passengers prayed. Crew members gripped their seats. Then suddenly, the plane broke free into calm sky. Daniel exhaled. Everyone was alive. But the consequences came later. The airline launched an investigation. Technically, Daniel had disobeyed air traffic control. He had deviated from assigned routing. Even though no one was hurt, the company claimed his decision created unnecessary risk. The board needed someone to blame. So they blamed him. Daniel was grounded, then quietly terminated. His reputation collapsed overnight. No airline wanted to hire a pilot involved in a protocol violation. His savings drained. The stress destroyed his marriage. His wife left, and Daniel was left alone with Lily. Now he worked night shifts in a warehouse, loading delivery trucks. The man who once commanded aircraft above the clouds now stacked cardboard boxes. And no one knew the truth. No one except one passenger who had been on that flight. Richard Calloway. And now, that passenger had finally found him. The next morning, a black car pulled up outside Daniel's apartment building. It looked wildly out of place among the aging cars and cracked pavement. Daniel stepped outside cautiously. The driver stepped out and opened the rear door. Inside sat Richard Calloway, the billionaire CEO himself. Daniel hesitated. "You're the one who called," he said. Calloway nodded. "I've been searching for you for 3 years." Daniel laughed bitterly. "Well, you found the wrong guy. I'm just a warehouse worker now." Calloway leaned forward. "No," he said calmly. "You're the man who saved my life." Daniel froze. For the first time since the investigation, someone believed him. Calloway continued. "I was on that flight, row 2A. Daniel's memory flashed back. The storm. The panic. The moment he turned the aircraft. Calloway's voice grew serious. The investigation was wrong. Daniel's jaw tightened. "I know." Then Calloway revealed something shocking. "I recently acquired the airline that fired you." Daniel blinked. "What?" Calloway smiled slightly. "And I've been reviewing their internal reports." Daniel felt his heart start to pound. Because suddenly, everything was changing. Calloway looked him directly in the eye. "They hid critical weather data during your investigation." Daniel felt the anger he had buried for years begin to rise. "They needed someone to blame," Calloway said. "And you were convenient." For the first time in 3 years, Daniel felt justice coming. 2 weeks later, the entire aviation industry was watching. A press conference had been called. Executives filled the room. Reporters packed the seats. At the front stood Richard Calloway. Next to him, Daniel Hayes. Whispers rippled through the audience. People recognized the name. The disgraced pilot. Calloway stepped to the podium. 3 years ago, he began, A pilot was wrongly blamed for an incident that he actually prevented from becoming a catastrophe. Screens behind him lit up. Radar data appeared. Storm models. Flight path simulations. Experts confirmed what Daniel had known all along. If he had obeyed air traffic control, Flight 728 would have flown directly into the storm's collapsing core. The aircraft likely would have been lost. 183 lives. Gone. Gasps filled the room. Calloway continued. Daniel Hayes did not break protocol recklessly. He made the only decision that could save that plane. Cameras flashed. The truth was finally public. The airline executives who fired him sat silently, their faces pale. Then Calloway turned to Daniel. For 3 years, this man carried blame that never belonged to him. He extended a folder. Today we correct that. Daniel opened it slowly. Inside was an offer. Captain position. Full reinstatement. With Skyreach Aerospace. The room erupted in applause. But the most important moment came later. That evening, Daniel picked Lily up and carried her onto a massive observation deck overlooking an airport runway. Planes roared into the sky one after another. "Daddy," Lily asked softly, "are you going to fly again?" Daniel looked out at the horizon. Then he smiled. "Yes, because sometimes justice takes time. But when the truth finally rises, it can lift someone higher than they ever imagined." Have you ever seen someone underestimated like Daniel in real life? Maybe someone blamed for something they didn't deserve. Share your story in the comments. And if you enjoy powerful stories about justice, resilience, and unexpected heroes, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more.